fun today. Love it. I know in a crowd this size, we've got to have some visitors, and we might also have some people that are normally with us, our regulars, but they've been out for a few weeks. So just to catch you up to speed on what's been going on, if you don't know, this series we've been doing is called, Unfulfilled. Did that fall while we were worshiping or something? We'll knock the wall over probably. Unfulfilled. So what's that all about? Well, actually, that was probably a good illustration. We're trying to get rid of the if you've been living in the land of as Jason calls it, we need to get rid of that. So that's what this series is about. And if you're in our small groups that are meeting each week in people's houses, you'll notice that we've been going through this. It's called S.H.A.P.E. Each letter stands for, it's like an acrostic, so each letter stands for something. This week is S. We're under spiritual gifts. So how do these two go together? How do what we're doing in the small groups go with this series? Well, like I said, we're trying to get rid of the So this week with the S, if you have undiscovered spiritual gifts, right on cue, then you need to get rid of the That's awesome. So, but I tell you what, in my own observations, and Jason spoke last week, and then what I observed in small group is that you guys are just not really getting excited about this series. And I know that might not be the case for everybody. If some of you are, that's awesome. But just again, my own observation, I think that there's just not this excitement that I think there should be. Because when I first saw this material, when I was looking at it online, and then I got the opportunity to preach, I was like, this is great because our church needs this. We need to discover these things, our spiritual gifts, our heart, our abilities, our personality, our experiences, and how that all ties in, and get rid of the we need that. But then, like I say, I've seen y'all's face, and it's kind of like, and we're just getting started in this series, so we need to bring this up. And so I thought perhaps we need to go and pray before we get started. So if you would, let's just join me in prayer, and then we'll get started. Heavenly Father, we love you. Have we told you that lately? We love you, God. You're everything. And God, I just pray right now for this series and for this message that you would just let it just grab hold of us and get inside of us. God, I just pray that this thing would pop and it would just take off and you would be honored. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Well, if you notice at the top of your note sheet, I've titled this message "Some Great Gift Ideas," and which a lot of you might be thinking, "Oh, some great gift ideas." You missed it a little bit. We just came through Christmas. Where were you then, right? Well, it's not the case. We don't just give gifts during the Christmas season, right? We give them all year round. You got anniversaries, Valentine's Day that we just came through, birthdays like Chris's, wherever Chris is. We got his is on Tuesday. Mine's July 26th. If you want to go ahead and start setting aside a little money each week, just to go ahead and give you a heads up. But we have events all throughout the year where we have to give gifts. So I've got some great gift ideas for you, which for guys, right? Guys, we need all the help we can get, don't we? I mean, I don't know about you, but listen a little aside real quick. I love the fact that I'm married because I get to use marriage illustrations. Right, Frank? I mean, you just get to use them like crazy. I love it. I think that's one of the reasons I got married. But anyway, before I got married, I swear I could come up with the best gifts. I mean, I just had so many just coming to me all the time, and dates too. I could come up with these greatest dates. And then I got married, and it's just like I went blank. I cannot give a gift at all to Shannon anymore. And bless her heart, she's always trying to act like she really likes it. She puts on that Academy Award winning, like, oh, thank you. That kind of thing where you're like, your acting skills are not good. I can tell you don't like it. But I made this mistake a few years ago for Christmas. We wanted to, money was kind of tight at the time, and so we said, okay, we're going to set a limit. Only $15. We're only going to spend $15 on each other. And so when she went to the store, she couldn't spend more than $15, and I went to the store, I couldn't spend more than $15. And I went into this trance. That's the only way I know how to describe it. Because the end result, the gift that I found for her was ridiculous. Let me show you what I found. This is the actual gift that I gave her with my $15 budget. The game Operation. I swear, I don't know what happened. You guys, Shanna, like I said, she had to do that acting thing. You know what I'm talking about right here? The naked guy with the big red nose. And there, Claude, when you hear this, I said the word naked because he always says every sermon I mention the word naked. There it is, right on. But, you kids are poking the naked guy with a pair of tweezers, which doesn't sound like a gift you should buy kids. I don't know what that's all about. But I bought her this, and I swear, I don't know what I was thinking. I just didn't have a clue, really. And I bombed. There's no other way to put it. I bombed that year. But here's where I'm going with this message. I know it sounds cute, we're giving some great gift ideas, but I'm not really talking about gifts for your spouse or whatever. I'm talking about gifts for God and for the church. And so you're saying, well, can we give gifts to God? Absolutely. We can give gifts to His church. So, here's the two. I'm going to go ahead and let the word out, get the secret out. Here's the two that I'm mentioning today. You need to give your body to God, and you need to give to the body. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. So there are two gifts, and that's, if you get nothing else, those are the gifts that we're given today. Here are the great gift ideas. Give your body to God and give to the body. So where does this hit home? Well, like Jason mentioned, this is our 2-year anniversary, which is awesome. So I emailed him a week ago and I said, Jason, it's been 2 years, so tell me, if you could, give me a list of some things that God has done in this church. Some things that we can look back on and say, wow, God's been moving. Not so much that, look what we're doing for God, but look what God has done through us and in this church. And he sent me back this email, and by the way, I said, don't mention attendance numbers. Because I know sometimes we use attendance numbers, and you can look around the room. The church has grown, to God be the glory. But a lot of times we use that as a gauge, is the church growing? If it's growing in numbers, then we know God's moving. That's not always the case. But the list he sent me, I think, is accurate. This is the stuff that God has done the past 2 years. 30 salvations, 34 baptisms. We've worked in the community through Kid Fest, the Carolina Pregnancy Center, ECU. We gave out over 6,000 those little bug wipes at 4th of July. Thousands more were reached at the Watermelon Festival. We support 2 church plants. I guess you could call Collide somewhat of a church plant. And then also Integrity Baptist Church. And then all through those community outreach events and those church ministries, we've given away $35,000. Am I reading that right? Wow. $35,000 towards those mission work right here in Pitt County. And God has answered prayer through jobs, marriages, direction, finances, healing, and salvation. God's at work, people. I mean, is it obvious or what? But here's the question: how do we keep that moving? And this isn't. I'm not giving you a formula today. Don't hear me wrong. I'm just telling you that God's been at work the past 2 years, and if He's going to continue to work through us, we have to give those 2 gifts that I just mentioned. If we're not being gift givers and giving these 2 areas, 2 more years from now, the total might be a total of 32 salvations. We only saw 2 more come to the Lord. We don't want that, obviously. We want to see God continue to work. So let's look at those 2 gifts that we need to be given to Him and into the church. Number 1, I guess if you want to go ahead and turn with me in your Bible, turn to Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. This is the first gift, and I think they already put it up there on the screen, and also I saw some of you writing it down. The first gift is giving your body. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. And while you're turning there, I'll go ahead and explain what's happened up to this point. The Romans was written by the Apostle Paul. Chapters 1 through 11 were basically about how God's mercy, He's given His mercy, His grace to a rebellious people, which we are. And through His sovereignty, He's chosen to save us. And through His Son, and despite all the things that we do against Him, when we come to Him, He'll save us. But then in chapter 12, Paul makes a shift. He begins to talk more about the practical application about things. And that's not to say that in chapters 1 through 11, he never mentioned practical application, because he did. But in chapter 12, he really begins to focus in on that. So that's where we pick off. Chapter 12, verse 1, he says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect will." So we need to be giving our bodies to God. What does Paul say here? He says we need to be like living sacrifices. right? This is in direct contrast to what, like, the sacrifices you see in the Old Testament. Because a lot of times they would offer, maybe say a bull or a lamb. They would bring it to the altar and they would slaughter it. And the blood would be an atonement for that sin, right? Well, Paul's saying that's not the kind of sacrifice I'm pointing to here. I'm talking about a living sacrifice. In other words, a living sacrifice, this on your note sheet, is a continually testifying to God's grace. So as you're going about your day, you're going about at work and at school or at home with your kids or whatever, we're supposed to be continually testifying to God's grace as living sacrifice. Paul also says there in verse 1 that we are supposed to be, that when we give our bodies in this way, that it's holy and pleasing to God. Holy gifts aren't cheap gifts. Holy gifts aren't $15 cheapy gifts. There's not, the budget on these things is through the roof. It is priceless. Holy gifts cost us a lot. And so if you're giving your body to God and saying, here you go, it's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you just about everything. So it's not a cheap gift. Well, verse 2 talks about that it's not just our bodies, not this, for example, this 165-pound frame with a heart in it and a liver and whatever else, bread box and a funny bone, all that stuff. Not just this body, we also need to be giving our minds, right? Look at verse 2. It says, do not be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. When we give our body, we also need to be giving our mind. It's kind of like the two go hand in hand. It reminds me of when we were little, me and my brother, my brother wanted a drum set, and like little kids are, that's all he talked about. Every day, every second. I want a drum set, I want a drum set. He never even played the drums a day in his life, but he wanted a drum set. And so Christmas comes, right? And I wanted him to get the drum set just so I wouldn't have to hear him say that. My dad, on the other hand, my dad cannot just give a gift. Anybody have dads like this that can't give a gift, they have to somehow turn it into like a joke on you? Am I the only one that has a dad like that? Because my dad did this to me. And all the time, and he did it to my brother that year. My brother's like, I want a drum set, I want a drum set. So Christmas morning, my dad has my brother come in, he blindfolds him. This is how my dad is, y'all. He's crazy like that. He gives him, so my brother's standing there, he tells my brother to sit down. My brother sits down, real cautiously, obviously, because he's blindfolded. But he can tell he's sitting on a drum stool. He's thinking, okay, this is getting good, right? I'm getting closer. Then he gives him a pair of drumsticks. So there's my brother sitting there on a drum stool holding a pair of drumsticks. He's like, all right, you can tell he's thinking, I'm about to get my drum set as soon as I take this blindfold off. My dad says, take the blindfold off. As soon as he does, the only thing there was like one single drum and a single cymbal. And my brother, how much can you play? Like, he's trying to be excited. He's kind of like, I mean, that's about all you can do, right? So my dad then, obviously, he puts the blindfold back on, and then he opens his eyes, there's the rest of the drum set. But for a while, my brother didn't know if there was actually going to be more. Because my dad, you never know with this kind of thing. So the point here I'm trying to make is that when we give our bodies, it's not just, we don't just give our bodies, we also have to be giving our minds. The two go hand in hand. Like a drum set, you don't just get one drum and a cymbal, you got the whole set, right? And that's how it is with us. So these are very expensive gifts that we need to be giving to God. The gift number 2, this is the second gift. We need to be giving to the body. And this is where we come back to the Unfulfilled series. This is where we tie into the S.H.A.P.E, S.H.A.P.E with the S, spiritual gifts. We need to be giving to the body. Now, the body I'm referring to now is not the body like I was talking about a second ago, like, again, the 165-pound frame thing. I'm talking about you, the church body, the church of God's church, the church of Jesus Christ. That's what I'm talking about. We need to be given to that body. So look at verses 6 through 8. Verses 6 through 8, Paul's going to explain something to us. It's very important. Listen to this. Verses 6, we have different gifts according to grace given to us. If a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. If it is serving, let him serve. If it is teaching, let him teach. If it is encouraging, let him encourage. If it is contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it is leadership, let him govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. The question that came to me as soon as I read that, verse 6, we have different gifts. What is Paul talking about? We have different gifts. If we're going to be giving to the body, what is he talking about? He's talking about spiritual gifts, right? Now, what are spiritual gifts? Because a lot of times you're joking and you're talking with people and you can get the impression that it's like I don't know, like setup, for example. When you have setup and we're setting up all this stuff, somebody might say, two people are talking and one guy will say, hey man, why don't you go set up the curtains because that's your spiritual gift, right? And they're like, okay, and he'll say, I'm gonna go over here and do nothing. But you go take care of your spiritual gift, which is curtains. You hear people say that jokingly, and they do it all the time for all kinds of things. And I'm not against that. If you want to say that, it's fine. But you know, when we make references like that, I think we water down the meaning of what a spiritual gift is. You see, a spiritual gift, to give you a good definition, are God-given abilities that help the church. God-given abilities that help the church. They're not for you. They're not to make you feel better. They're not to make you feel special. Oh, I got this gift, yay. They're for the church. And that's why we say when we give to the body, that's what they're for. Spiritual gifts are God-given abilities that help the church. Well, let me give you a list. Now, we just read there a few of them that Paul talked about. Prophesying, teaching, and that kind of thing. But there's more. If you look in like 1 Corinthians, and then there's a few other books that Paul and other authors talk about the spiritual gifts. So there's more than are listed here. So let me just read through a few of those for you real quick. Some of you just kind of be listening. Maybe this applies to some of you. Administration, apostleship, discernment, encouragement, evangelism, faith, giving, helps/service, hospitality, knowledge, leadership, mercy, pastoring, prophecy, teaching, and wisdom. So there are a lot of gifts, right? And it's funny how God works this out. I'll tell you, a few weeks ago, not a few weeks, actually a few months ago, before this series came up, before anything, I was already going in the land of Un. And I was already asking myself, what are my spiritual gifts? I just think this is awesome. I just think it's amazing how God in His sovereignty can work things out like this. And so, but I was already wondering, what are my spiritual gifts? And I was going through a time where I was like, I don't know what they are, and I was stressing out about it. So I went online and I printed out some of these spiritual gift tests, or I should say assessment, or whatever, because we got any college students here? Some college students, when I say test, there's like a flash of light ringing in your ears, and your heart stops beating for like 20 minutes. At least that's how I used to be. So we'll call it assessment, spiritual gift assessment. So I took one of these spiritual gift assessments online, and I discovered that my spiritual gifts are discernment, giving, and faith, which I think is pretty accurate. But a lot of you are still sitting here and you're thinking, what are my spiritual gifts? And that's, if anything else, this is where we're going today, and this is what I want you to get. You need to get a hold of what your spiritual gifts are. You need to figure this out, and I'm going to give you 3 ways that I think. One, like I just mentioned, the spiritual gift test. Got that coming up. The second way, I think, is to talk to others. Now, if you take one of these spiritual gift tests or assessments, I'm saying it, online or wherever, the next step is to talk to others, because you can learn so much from talking to other people and finding out what they say, and they see things in you that you don't see in yourself. So it's very important to talk to others. And the last one is by serving the church. And when you go through this book right here in your small group, you'll see that this guy, he really hits on that last one. He really is emphasizing that we need to be serving the church to find out what our spiritual gifts are. And the reason he says that is because, tests are good for some things and talking to others are good, but you really get to know if God has gifted you in an area when you get out there and start doing it. For example, I used to do this thing called Church on the Street. Have I ever told you about Church on the Street? I don't know if I have or not. Sometimes I forget who I tell these stories to. I talk to y'all, and I talk to the youth, and then I talk to other people, and I forget. I'm very forgetful, basically, is what I'm saying. But there was this thing I used to do called Church on the Street back in a church in Georgia. And every Thursday, the only exception being Thanksgiving, we would go to the same parking lot every week, and the homeless people there in Atlanta knew that we were coming because we were consistent and we came all the time. And we would give them hot dogs, which this local grocery store had given to us because they had passed the expiration date. So they couldn't sell them, but I guess they were still edible. I guess it fell into that routine, or that timeline. So we would give these guys these hot dogs and beans, like army style. We would cook them in a big jar and everything, or a big can. And I just loved it. But being out there and serving that way, I found out that one of my spiritual gifts, well, it's not, like I say, it's not in the top 3, but it's in there, is evangelism. Because I would go around and I'd talk to these guys, and these homeless guys, they didn't have names like you, me, they weren't like Steve and Joe. They had like, I guess, their street name or something. It was like Killer, or what's another street name? I don't even know. Slasher, what is it? Spiker? Spike. Oh, Spike, okay, yeah. So they had these names, so I'm like, hey, what's up, Spike? And you get to know their street names and you talk to them, and I just love that, man. It was, if I could go back in time, I love that because it was an opportunity each week for me to get to know those guys more and to share with them. And yeah, we gave them a hot dog or whatever, but I was sharing with them about Christ. And it was in that process and in that serving that God really began to show me what my spiritual gifts are. And one of them also is evangelism. So here's the thing. You can't afford to wait any longer to open your gift. If you're sitting here today, and I'm going to go ahead and get this brick out. This is what this little brick, we've been putting one brick in the wall each week. And this week, this brick represents people who have undiscovered spiritual gifts. So if you're sitting here and you think, man, I don't know what it is, or I think I kind of know, but I'm not really sure, that's what this thing represents. We're going to put it in the wall. But you cannot afford to go one more day. And we made this little video up. I didn't make it up, but I think I'm in it. But it addresses this. How you need to open your spiritual gift, right? You need to unwrap it. So if you want to go ahead and play that video for us, guys. I got you. They did an awesome job. What was going on in this video is we got Attila the Un. You remember him, right? Attila the Un. We're going to keep seeing him. He's coming up each week. Attila the Un kept stealing the gift. Each time it was about to be opened, the Un kept it from getting opened. And maybe you're like that today. Maybe you don't know. God has given you a gift. If you are a Christian, when you became a Christian, He gave you a gift at that moment. But you have yet to open it. You've got to rip into it. It's kind of like my daughter, Bria. And I love that. This is the first time I preach, I get to use a daughter illustration. This is great. But, she's just learning how to crawl. And but before that, when she would just sit there, we would bring her gifts and stuff for Christmas. And this is what scares me, y'all. And I'll be honest. She, before she could barely even do anything, she could tear into a present. And everybody else is laughing, oh my God, she's ripping into the gift. All I'm thinking is, man, I'm thinking 16 years down the road, Daddy, I want this and I want that. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready for that. Or probably not even 16 years, it'll be like 5 years. On your cell phone, when she's like 5 or something. But, I think, she just tears into that gift. She wants to see what's going on. The paper is exciting. Yeah, rip it off. But with you guys, I don't know if you feel that way, but you should. When it comes to discovering what our spiritual gifts are, you should just dive into that and rip it and just want to figure out what it is. But you're letting Attila the Un keep coming and steal it because you're not taking it seriously. So here's what we're going to do. I don't know if this is you, but I want you to take care of, where should I put it? This one. Is that cool with everybody? Today, I want you to get rid of this Un and start figuring it out. So it's not only time for you to open it, but it's also time for you to open those gifts underneath your seat. And you've been so patient, and I thank you so much for that. I know I put on there jokingly, rip into it like my daughter Bria. Just rip into it. Well, don't rip it too much, because there's something in it that can rip as well. But do open it. Trust me, it's not $1 million. I don't make a lot of money, so it's not $1 million. Trust me. Did anybody tear theirs up? Who didn't get one, by the way? If somebody does not have one, I know we had to put out a few extra chairs. If you would, go ahead and raise your hand, because we've got some extras in the back, and if you did not get one, just raise your hand. Or they already been passed out. They might have already been passed out. I don't know.
We need to get the chairs to go down.
Okay. Awesome. Yes, that's just like Maria right there. Oh yeah, there you go, Derek. What you'll find in that gift, and this is to illustrate, again, you should be opening your spiritual gifts and figure out what they are. But I've given you a very specific gift, and it's one of those tests that I took. Actually, it's one that I wrote. Because when you go to your small group, and this is not to keep you from going to small group at all, because you're going to get more in depth in that. It's much more. You're going to take much more advantage of it if you need to go. But in case there's some of you who couldn't go to small group and maybe you work, or you got kids or stuff and you can't get out, or you got some practice you got to take your kids to, or whatever, I went ahead and gave you one of those spiritual gift tests, and I wrote it, and so it's not perfect. The definitions aren't perfect, but I think it'll give you an idea, and it fits right in that what we talked about taking a test and talk to others and get out there and serve, right? So the bottom line is, here's the bottom line, it's the last one on your note sheet. If we're going to keep this church healthy, if we're going to continue to go 2 more years in this church, and so that next year that number doesn't say 30, or in 2 years the number doesn't say 30 salvations, it says maybe 80 salvations. Who would like to see that? I mean, everybody, right? That'd be awesome. If we're going to see that, if it's going to take place, if we're going to continue to be a healthy and active church, we need to be giving our body, our mind to God, and giving to the body, that's Christ, through our spiritual gifts. You know, I'm pretty much done here, but I wanted to say this last thing, that the reason we give is because He first gave to us. And it's fun to get up here and talk about the spiritual gifts and everything. But if maybe you're sitting out there today and you don't know God, you've never received the greatest gift ever, and that's salvation. And He's offering it to you, but you hadn't received it. I'm going to challenge you to do that today. Find Jason or one of the other staff members and go up to him and say, look, today's the day. You know, what better day to do that than on our 2-year anniversary? So go and do that. And also, in just a moment, and this is exciting again, I love that we're also going to do a baptism. There's 6, I think, right now that have already said they're going to, and I think we're going to watch maybe a video of theirs. But more can come. So if you have already accepted the greatest gift ever, which is salvation, but yet you've yet to make that public, or you've yet to been baptized, I'm challenging you to come today. You say, what? I mean, look at me, I'm dressed in my normal clothes or whatever, and how am I supposed to do that? Jason has already got some clothes for you. Got some shorts here, and some shirts. And we're going to give you time, if that's you and you want to take advantage of this. Come up here and get one of these. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Just come up and get one. And be a part of this baptism where these people are going to be basically saying publicly, in a symbolic way, this is what Christ has done in my life. Thank you. That's all I have for you.